"You're doing it wrong," Marissa said loud enough for my mother to hear. Then she laughed, sharp, careless. My ex would have handled this better. He always knew what to say. The dining room went still for half a second, like even the chandelier didn't want to move. I kept my hands on the carving knife anyway, trying to slice the roast the way Mom liked it. Thin, neat, perfect. My palms were a little sweaty. I could feel heat climb my neck. My dad cleared his throat like he was about to rescue me, then didn't. Marissa leaned back in her chair, eyes flicking to my sister, Paige, like they were sharing a joke. "Honestly, Luke, it's like you're allergic to being confident." Paige snorted into her drink. My mother's lips tightened, but she said nothing. The silence didn't protect me. It just made me feel smaller. I swallowed hard, forced a smile, and kept slicing. "Remember how Evan used to host?" Marissa continued. Bright voice, casual cruelty. He'd walk in and everyone just relaxed. No awkwardness, no whatever this is. My chest tightened. I could hear the blade tapping the plate, a steady little sound that felt like a countdown. I glanced at my dad. He stared at the tablecloth like it had the answer. Marissa didn't stop. She never did. She'd been comparing me to Evan for months. How he dressed, how he talked, how he led. Like my job, my effort, my love didn't count unless it looked like some memory she'd polished into a trophy. And that's the thing about being compared to a ghost. You can't win. I exhaled slowly, tried to set the knife down without shaking. But my fingers trembled anyway. Marissa smiled, not even noticing the damage. "I'm just saying, if you'd—" I looked up. My voice came out calm, but it felt like my heart was sprinting. "Then why didn't you stay with him?" The words landed like a dropped glass. Marissa blinked once. The smile vanished so fast it was like it had been erased. Her mouth opened, then closed. She glanced at my mother, then Paige, searching for backup. Nobody laughed. She didn't answer. She just stared at me with a tight, embarrassed look, like I'd broken a rule by asking something logical. Paige shifted in her chair. "Okay, wow," she muttered, like I was the one who'd crossed the line. My mother finally spoke, voice soft but firm. "Let's not do this at dinner." Marissa's face flushed. She pushed her napkin aside and stood. "I'm not hungry anymore." She walked out, heels clicking, leaving a cold space behind her chair. I sat back down slowly, pulse pounding in my ears. My dad took a sip of water and said nothing. Paige rolled her eyes like I'd ruined the whole evening. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't apologize. Here's the part you need to understand. I wasn't always the wrong one in this family. I grew up in Cedar Ridge, Oregon, in a house where praise was rare and criticism was efficient. Paige was the golden child, Dad's pride, Mom's helper. I was the one who meant well, which was their way of saying I was never quite enough. When Marissa came into my life, she didn't just marry me. She slid right into my family's pattern like it fit her perfectly. Every time she compared me to Evan, my family acted like it was harmless, like it was motivation. And every time I swallowed it, they got comfortable watching me shrink. After dinner, Marissa didn't come to bed. She stayed in the guest room with the door locked. The next morning, she acted normal, too normal. She hummed while pouring coffee. She kissed my cheek like nothing happened, but her eyes didn't soften. All week, she stayed weirdly polite. No comparisons, no jokes, no little digs. Just a calm sweetness that felt practiced, like she'd switched strategies. On Friday, my mother called and said, "Your aunt passed. We're doing the will reading Monday, Everyone needs to be there. I said yes, even though my stomach tightened. Because my Aunt Darlene wasn't just an aunt. She was the only adult who ever looked at me like I mattered. Marissa overheard the call. She walked into the kitchen, her phone in her hand, and asked, "A will reading?" "Yeah," I said. "Aunt Darlene." Marissa tilted her head. "She had money?" "She had assets," I replied carefully. Marissa's mouth twitched, like she was trying not to smile. "Interesting." That night, when she thought I was in the shower, I heard her whispering in the hallway, low, urgent. "I'm telling you," she said. "Just be ready. It's coming." I stepped out, towel around my waist, and she jumped like she'd been caught stealing. "Who were you talking to?" I asked. "Nobody," she said too fast. "Just Paige." Paige. Of course. Monday arrived like a storm without clouds. At the lawyer's office, Marissa sat close to me, hands folded, looking like the perfect wife. Paige sat across from us, smug and relaxed. My parents sat beside her, united in the way they never were with me. The lawyer, Mr. Henson, adjusted his glasses and opened a folder. "Aunt Darlene left a letter," he said, "to be read first." He slid an envelope across the table. Not to Paige, not to my parents, to me. My name was written on it in my aunt's familiar, looping handwriting. Marissa's fingers went rigid on her lap, and just as I reached for the envelope, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text flashed across the screen. "Hi, you don't know me, but I'm Evan's fiancée. We need to talk." For a second, I just stared at the message like it was a mistake meant for someone else. Evan's fiancée. My throat tightened. The lawyer's office smelled faintly like paper and lemon cleaner, and suddenly I felt too warm in my sweater. My fingers hovered over the phone, unsure whether to hide it or show it. Across the table, Marissa was watching me, not casually, not like a normal person watching someone check their phone. Her eyes were locked on my screen with a sharpness that made my stomach drop. "Luke," Mr. Henson said, polite, "whenever you're ready." I slid the phone face down on my thigh. My pulse thudded hard. "Sorry," I managed. Marissa's smile returned, but it looked pinned in place. Paige leaned forward, curious. My mom's hands were folded tight, like she was praying for the day to go smoothly. I opened the envelope. Inside was a single letter, and it started exactly how Aunt Darlene spoke. Direct, warm, no nonsense. "Luke," it read, "if you're hearing this in a lawyer's office, it means I'm not there to tell you what you already know. You've been the steady one, the quiet helper, the one who carries people without demanding applause." My eyes stung, fast and embarrassing. I blinked hard and kept reading. "I watched you get treated like an extra in your own life. Not because you are one, because you were trained to accept it." Paige shifted in her chair. Marissa's breathing changed. I could hear it, small, tense inhales. Mr. Henson cleared his throat. "Your aunt asked that the letter be read out loud, Luke, if you're comfortable." My hands trembled slightly. I didn't want my family to hear her kindness. I didn't want them to borrow it and act like they'd always supported me. But I also didn't want to shrink again, so I read. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Aunt Darlene had written about the summer she took me in when I was 19 and had nowhere to go after a fight with my dad. About how I paid her back quietly, month by month, while Paige got help that was never repaid. About how I showed up when she was sick, fixed her porch, drove her to appointments, sat with her through long afternoons when she didn't want to be alone. Then the letter shifted. I'm leaving you the house on Pine Street, the savings account attached to it, and majority ownership of Darlene's Crafts LLC, the family business your parents thought they controlled. Paige let out a sound, half laugh, half gasp. What? My mother's face went pale. My dad's jaw tightened like he'd been punched. Mr. Henson nodded calmly, like this was just paperwork. To be clear, he said, Ms. Darlene Reynolds transferred her shares months ago. Luke is the majority owner. Paige's eyes widened, darting to my parents. But, Dad, my father stood up so quickly, his chair scraped the floor. That can't be right. It is, Mr. Henson said evenly. And there's more. He slid another document forward. A condition, he continued, that Luke decides. Ms. Reynolds requested he be given full authority to either keep the company within the family or sell it. The room went tight with panic. Marissa's hand found my knee under the table, squeezing. I looked at her, fingers, perfect nails, careful pressure, like she was trying to steer me without words. Paige leaned toward me, voice suddenly sweet. Luke, wow, that's amazing. You know, Aunt Darlene always loved you. My mom's eyes shone with sudden tears that felt strategic. Honey, we're family. We can talk about what's best together. My dad sat back down, face stiff. Luke, he said, trying for calm, we'll handle this responsibly. You're not... This is a lot. Marissa's grip tightened again. We, she repeated softly, like a promise. I glanced at her. Her eyes were bright, excited, and that's when it clicked. The polite week, the sudden calm, the whisper in the hallway. It's coming. She'd known. My phone vibrated again against my leg. Another text. I'm sorry to do this by message, but Marissa has been lying to you. I have proof. Please meet me today. It's about what she's been planning with your sister. My chest tightened so hard it felt like air was disappearing from the room. I kept my face neutral, but my cheeks burned. I could hear my own heartbeat. Marissa's hand slid up my thigh, possessive, like she was reminding me who I belonged to. Mr. Henson asked, Luke, would you like a moment to consider your options? We can schedule a follow-up meeting. I looked at the papers again. House, savings, majority ownership. And suddenly, I wasn't the extra in the room anymore. I nodded. Yes, I said. I'd like a follow-up. Marissa smiled quickly, relieved. Paige exhaled like she'd been holding her breath. Outside the office, they surrounded me like a press team. Paige looped her arm through mine. Let's celebrate, she said. We should all go somewhere nice. My mom touched my shoulder. You did so much for her. She saw it. See? Good things happen. Marissa leaned in close, voice low, sweet. Baby, we're going to fix everything. I'll help you handle it. I forced a smile, my jaw tight. I need to run an errand, I said. Just an hour. Marissa's eyes narrowed. An errand? Work call, I lied smoothly. She hesitated, then nodded. Okay, but don't make decisions without me. That sentence stayed in my head like a warning. I drove across town to a quiet coffee shop near the river, hands tight on the wheel. My phone buzzed with a final message. I'm inside. I'm the one in the blue jacket. Please, just listen. When I walked in, I spotted her immediately. Young woman, nervous posture, eyes scanning the door like she was bracing for impact. She stood when she saw me. Luke, I nodded. She swallowed, hand shaking slightly as she opened her bag. I'm Tessa, she said, and I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here because Marissa tried to hurt you first. Tessa didn't slide her phone across the table like she was showing off. She held it like it weighed something. I know this is strange, she said, voice quiet. But I couldn't live with it. My mouth was dry. How do you even know my name? Tessa glanced down. Evan told me about you, about how Marissa always compared you. He thought it was cruel. He said he'd moved on, but she never did. My chest tightened. I hated hearing Evan's name in a sentence that included my marriage. Still, I forced myself to stay calm. Okay, I said. What is this about? Tessa tapped her screen and turned it toward me. It was a group chat. The name at the top made my stomach drop. Family Strategy. Members: Marissa, Paige, and my mother. My ears rang for a second, like the cafe faded into static. Tessa's voice stayed gentle. I'm sorry, I only saw this because Marissa messaged Evan last week, bragging. He showed me because he felt sick about it. My hands trembled slightly as I read. Messages from Marissa. He finally snapped. Good. Now he'll feel guilty. Will reading Monday. I'm acting sweet until then. Once the shares are confirmed, we push him to sign a management agreement. Paige, tell your mom to back you up. Luke always folds when she cries. Paige replied. He thinks he's tough. He'll cave. We'll say it's too much responsibility. Dad can help. Then my mother. Just keep him calm. We need stability. Luke can't be trusted with big decisions. I stared at the words until they blurred. My throat tightened like someone had tied a knot inside it. I could feel warmth in my cheeks, not from embarrassment, something sharper, a quiet, burning clarity. Tessa leaned forward. There's more. She swiped. A screenshot of an email draft. Marissa to a bank officer, asking about transferring the Pine Street savings account into a joint management account immediately after the will meeting. Then another, Marissa requesting an appointment with a business consultant to restructure ownership influence through a spouse agreement. My stomach turned. It wasn't just rude comparisons. It was a plan. I sat back, breathing shallow. My hands were cold now, even though the cafe was warm. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Tessa's eyes softened. Because I've been on the other side of a lie. And because Evan isn't the hero in this story, either. He hurt people. I don't want Marissa to keep hurting people to feel powerful. I nodded slowly, trying to steady myself. Thank you, I said, and my voice cracked on the second word. Tessa reached into her bag and pulled out one more thing, a printed letter. I didn't know if you'd believe screenshots, she said. So I asked Evan's lawyer friend to confirm something. These messages include your mom. That matters. I looked down at the letterhead. It was simply an affidavit statement, confirming the screenshots were genuine copies of what Tessa received from Evan's phone. Not dramatic, just clean and legal. Something inside me unclenched. For years, I'd been told I was too sensitive, too quiet, too unsure. The problem was never my sensitivity. The problem was who I kept handing my softness to. I drove home in silence, but I didn't feel lost. I felt focused. When I walked into the house, Marissa was on the couch scrolling her phone like nothing in the world could touch her. She looked up and smiled. Hey babe, how'd the work call go? My chest tightened, but I kept my voice calm. Fine, I said. I scheduled a follow-up with Mr. Henson tomorrow. Her eyes lit up. Perfect, we can go together. We? I repeated gently. She laughed. Of course, this is our future. I nodded once, like I agreed. Then I said, I need to print something from your laptop. Mine's dead. Marissa hesitated for a fraction of a second, just long enough to tell on herself. Then she handed it over. Sure. I didn't go snooping. I didn't need to. I simply emailed myself the screenshots Tessa gave me and saved them to a folder. Clean, quiet, prepared. The next day at Mr. Henson's office, my family arrived early, dressed like they were coming to claim something. Paige hugged me too tightly. "We're so proud," she said through her teeth. My mother kissed my cheek. "You don't have to do this alone," she whispered, like she hadn't written the opposite. Marissa sat beside me, hand on my arm, sweet smile ready. Mr. Henson entered with his folder. "Luke," he said, "have you decided how you want to proceed with the company?" I looked at my family, their hopeful faces, their rehearsed warmth. Then I placed a thin stack of papers on the table. "I have," I said. Marissa's smile stayed in place. "Great, we can—" "I'd like to add a note to the record," I interrupted, still calm. "About coercion and attempted manipulation." The air changed instantly. Paige's eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" Mr. Henson's expression sharpened. "Luke, do you have documentation?" I slid the screenshots forward, along with the affidavit letter. Marissa's hand slipped off my arm like she'd touched something hot. My mother went pale. "Luke," I held up a hand. Not angry, not loud, just done. "I'm not here to punish anyone," I said, voice steady. "But I'm not signing anything that gives you control over what Aunt Darlene left me. Not now, not ever." Paige's mouth opened and closed. Marissa stared at the papers like they were a trap. Mr. Henson nodded slowly. "Understood. Luke, in that case, I recommend we formalize your ownership and appoint an independent manager if needed. Someone you choose." I exhaled, a slow release. "That's what I want," I said, "and I want all future communication to go through my attorney." Marissa finally spoke, voice small. "Luke, we can talk about this at home." I met her eyes. My hands were steady now. "You should have talked to me like a partner," I said, quietly. "Not like a project. No yelling, no scene, just truth." When we left the office, my family walked behind me instead of ahead for once. The sidewalk felt brighter. The air felt lighter. That night, I sat alone in Aunt Darlene's old kitchen on Pine Street, holding a mug of tea, listening to the quiet. For the first time, the silence didn't feel like rejection. It felt like peace. And I realized something simple. Self-worth isn't something your family hands you. It's something you finally stop giving away.